Okay, so the last two things that need to happen before you can take your bike out and ride it, now that you've flashed a TSP map to the ECU with the ERM, is that we need to reset the power valve, and we also need to double check that the TPS, or throttle position sensor, is set to 0.40 of a volt when both the red and yellow adjusters are backed out. So let's do the power valve reset first. So from the dash screen, press Extras, then you'll see the new Diagnostics button here. Swipe across once. Now from here, we have a range of functions that we can choose from in a drop-down menu. Now this enables us to perform a power valve reset in an easier way to what you'd normally have to do. So normally to do this reset, you need to turn the ECU off, hold the throttle at 50%, turn the ECU back on, count to 10 and let the throttle go. You'll then hear the power valve move up and down. We've been able to implement this on the ERM so that simply at the press of a button, that same process will occur and the ECU will relearn the lower and the upper power valve positions. So you can hear quite easily the power valve moving up and down there, and at the end you can hear the fuel pump spin. I'll just do that one more time. So there you go. So the ECU has now relearnt the upper and lower positions for the power valve. Now that particular relearn process applies to both maps on the ECU, so both the white and green map. You don't need to do it once in white and then again in green. You just do it one time in any map and it will save it for both. And then finally on this list we have a TPS reset. So similar to the power valve reset, this enables us to initiate the process that normally would be done by turning the ECU on and off and rotating the throttle multiple times. It's the process outlined in the user manual. We've just been able to implement it here again at the press of a button. When you press run, it takes you straight away to a list of instructions. So if you read through these, it tells you exactly the process that you need to follow from the very beginning. So that is loosen the throttle cables, back off the red and yellow adjusters, loosen the torque screws, manually rotate the TPS. It guides you through all of that. At the bottom you can press OK. Now if you need to go back to those instructions at any time, you can press the info button at the top left corner. So if you forget some of these steps, you can always go back to these instructions. So this is a really, really important step in setting up any TBI bike. In fact, it's the first thing that you should do. I guess whether the bike is stock or certainly if you're loading one of our TSP maps with an ERM, the first time you connect up the ERM, you do need to go through this process. What this page here shows you is the current saved voltage, which is showing as 0.39, the saved voltage and our current voltage. Now, current voltage is basically the voltage that you'll see when the bike is idling properly or in a consistent manner. The saved voltage is the voltage that you will see when you back out all of those adjusters and loosen off the throttle cable. So normally we would suggest to customers that this saved voltage needs to be 0.40. The beauty of having this on the ERM is for the first time ever with these bikes, this ERM allows you to actually see what's currently saved in the ECU and at the press of a button change that value if necessary. So we'll go through the whole process right now of resetting this TPS value. We always tell customers to aim for 0.40. Technically 0.40 is the stock factory setting that all of these ECUs come from the factory with when they're first programmed. If they have any other value, which is quite common, it's there because the adaptive values have been relearned to suit the current TPS position. So let's go through the process right now of resetting this to get 0.40 here. So the first step in resetting the TPS adaptive values is that we need to loosen off the throttle cable, which you can do up here. Then we need to come down to the red and the yellow adjusters and back them all the way out. So you can just get your hand in here and loosen off that red adjuster and the yellow one underneath. Now as you're loosening off these adjusters, certainly the red one, you'll see on the ERM screen that the voltage is dropping. So keep winding the red adjuster all the way back until the voltage stops dropping. Then reach down and back out the yellow adjuster just in case that's holding the throttle open a little bit. And then also check the free play on the cables again, just to make sure that so I've got plenty of free play there. So there we go. So this ECU has a current save value of 0.39. What we want is to relearn that value at 0.4. Now, if I come around to the throttle position sensor itself, normally if this needed to be adjusted, if that value on the ERM screen was not 0.4, you would take off the protective cover from the TPS. Then you would loosen off the 2 Torx screws holding the TPS in place. And then looking back up at the ERM screen, we would manually rotate the TPS until we achieve 0.4 on this left side current voltage. So it was already there, but just for the purposes of this example, I'll manually reset that again. So I'll set that at 0.4, and then I want to retighten the Torx bolts, or the Torx screws. As I'm doing this, the voltage is going to change on the ERM because it's very sensitive. So you need to keep watching the ERM as you tighten the bolts back and forth, and make sure that that voltage remains at 0.4 once the bolts are properly tightened again. So we've achieved that now. So basically what we have is the butterfly or the throttle body is fully closed. We've manually adjusted our TPS voltage to 0.4. I'll just readjust that now. It's flicking halfway between 0.39 and 0.4, which is not quite good enough. So again, I'll tighten it. There we go. So now we've manually set our TPS to 0.4. Now all we need to do is press Learn. And you'll see shortly the saved voltage now goes to 0.40. So now we have reset the TPS, we've reset the adaptive values, and it now knows that 0.40 is the voltage which relates to a fully closed throttle body. The reason that is important is because that voltage then sets up the entire fuel map. So at every throttle position, it knows exactly where it is and how much fuel is required. So now we can go back to our red and yellow adjusters, and we can set them up for a proper idle. So we come back around this side, start winding in the red adjuster until we get to about, I know on this bike it was about 0.53. The usual range is about 0.52 to 0.56, thereabouts. I'll leave that there, 0.54. And then we want to go to the yellow adjuster, push that in, and with it pushed in we want to wind that so it's 0.1 greater than the red value. So that's our red value at 0.54. When I push in the yellow adjuster, it's now 0.64. So the yellow adjuster is our cold start. It opens the butterfly a little bit to allow the engine to rev a bit higher and warm up a bit faster, and we want a 0.1 difference between those. So this bike is now ready to start. Once it's fully warmed up, you may need to come back and readjust the red knob on the throttle body just to tweak that idle voltage, but otherwise that is job done. You don't need to relearn this each time you flash a map. This is generally a one-time thing. When you first get the ERM, you need to go through this process. Once it's learnt once, it will be, I guess, embedded in the ECU. And each time you make a mapping change with the ERM, whether it's fuel, ignition or oil, it will only change that relevant data, relevant to fuel, ignition or oil. It will not wipe this saved TPS voltage. So once this is done once, it will tend to stay put on the ECU.